I'm ready when you guys are.
Send it.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 143 of the Plastic Posse podcast. This podcast is brought to you by some great partners in Micro World Games, Tankcraft, Tammy USA, Bases by Bill, and AK Interactive. And also, we'd like to thank all of our Patreon supporters. You make this possible, and we really appreciate your support. So, I'm back. I missed the last episode. I was in Massachusetts with my lovely bride for a little weekend away. It was pretty cool. I'll talk about it a little bit later because I did do some cool historical stuff because you got to when you go anywhere, much to my wife's chagrin, but it was a pretty good time. So I'm glad to be back. Let's see how everyone's doing. Scott, I'm going to start with you. I know you've been busy, and I know there's something particular that you and I are going to talk about because we were both really excited about it, and maybe Grant too. I don't know if Grant has seen it or not, but Scott, how are you, sir?
I am good. It's good to have you back. And with JB missing today and Jensen, I don't know. And I
I
think
wouldn't say we're missing him.
yeah, that's true. But no, it's good. You're gonna have some travel logs because normally that's JB's role. But he's on another trip to San Francisco. Hopefully, he's having a good time there. But yeah, I've been really busy. The build on my Crusader is finished. I am waiting for a 3D printed spotlight for the turret to arrive from Australia. I expect that here in the next couple of days. I was trying to do a lot of research, get some stowage and context for how I'm going to display it. And I found the British National Army Museum website, and they have a really awesome photo archive. I sent a picture out to a couple of you guys yesterday, and a couple of the groups were in of some crusaders on a road, and the Great Pyramids are in the background. It's just a really, really awesome historical photo. Found that there, but found literally hundreds of photos of Crusaders in mostly in El Alamein and Tobruk in Egypt, but really great for context for a subject like that. And so, if you're not familiar with that website, check that out. It's the British National Army Museum. They have a really good website. Got the 3D printer. TJ's been inspiring me to get that back up and running. So I gave it a good clean and changed the resin and did a plate full of flimsy cans. Thank you, Mr. Night Shift, our favorite uncle. His STL for those little British flimsy cans. They're really great. And printed a whole bunch of those. And let's see, booked my SMC airfare. So got a plane ticket. Really, really happy. I don't know why, but when I looked at airfare from Salt Lake to Amsterdam about 6 months ago, it was astronomically expensive and it's come way down. So that's really good. And then been finishing up watching Squid Mars Miniature Masters. I don't know if you guys have stayed with that, but episodes 2 and 3, those have been a lot of fun. Have you guys seen those?
Oh yeah. I haven't seen it, but I'm writing it down right now because I keep thinking about, most of the time when I listen to the podcast, I'm in the car. Miniature Masters.
Absolutely. I guess we should tell everybody Stephen Reid is joining us and really appreciate that. Stephen joining in and on the fun. And we'll talk with Stephen at length as well later on. But anyway, yeah, those episodes are a lot of fun. So, yeah, TJ. And then, man, I guess I'm rambling on here, but went and saw the Odyssey yesterday. I told TJ I've never seen a movie at 8 o'clock in the morning, but man, what a film. What an epic.
Yeah, my wife and I saw it opening weekend, and look, I've read the Odyssey, I've read the Iliad. I was an English nerd in high school. I took comp lit AP, like all this. I wrote for my high school newspaper. I love the written word. Um, man, that movie was freaking good. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I know Jensen was getting annoyed. She's like, "Oh, I don't want to see it because you guys just keep talking about it." I'm like, "Yeah, because it's good, man. Like, it's a good movie." And I'm not like one of these like huge Christopher Nolan fanboys. Like, Christopher Nolan makes really good movies. Don't get me wrong, but like, he's not like my favorite filmmaker. He's up there. He's made some movies I really, really enjoy. My personal favorite movies of his, I mean, other than like The Dark Knight, which is really good, obviously, but I kind of like the Batman trilogy is kind of like his own thing, um, in my opinion. My favorite movie of his is Interstellar, and then my
Oh
second
yeah.
favorite is The Prestige. Maybe it's like neck and neck. I love The Prestige, and I think it's really underrated, and it's like one of his lowest rated movies on like Rotten Tomatoes, other than I think Tenet, which I've never seen, which I kind of now want to go see because I've heard it's actually not bad. But hot damn, that movie was freaking good. It was really, really good. Like I mean, not to like gush on about it, but yeah.
I
And look, if you haven't seen it, no, it does not follow the Odyssey 100%. And yes, Christopher Nolan changed things. And no, I don't care. Like I literally don't care. I know that story up and down, right? I've read the poem, but what he did was really cool. And yeah, like, and it's one of those movies like the further away I get from having seen it, the more I like it. Like I walked out of the theater, I'm like that was really, really good. And then I thought about it like the next day, and we're really like the rest of the day, and the next day, and then like I was like, man, that actually was. I think it was even better than I originally thought it was. And I saw it in IMAX, not 70 millimeter, unfortunately. There's only one of those theaters near my house, and it's at the Udvar-Hazy Air and Space Museum. So, and I think it's all sold out anyways. But I saw it on like regular IMAX. My only complaint is it was really loud, like even for me, and I'm not bothered
yeah.
by loud noises. I mean, I go to concerts and all that kind of stuff, but especially like there's a part that hopefully this isn't a spoiler. They go through a storm on the Mediterranean, and holy, it was so freaking loud. And I'm not the only one that's thought that. I've
No,
seen people online be like, "Man, I thought I was gonna die on that boat with all them during that part."
well,
That's how loud it was.
and I'm glad you said that because it was a choice. It was very loud,
Yeah,
but only in certain points. And
yeah,
I think
Yeah.
Nolan. I mean, I'm gonna go back to Interstellar because I'm a huge fanboy of that movie. I think it's one of the best sci-fi films I've ever seen. And he used the soundtrack in that movie really, really loud towards the end when the puzzle is sort of unraveling. You know, the characters are sort of figuring out how that movie's going to come together. And that storm, it wasn't just the volume level, man, the lightning flashes like in your face. It was really, really intense. But I loved how I actually like how the movie it doesn't necessarily make material changes, but it is a little bit of a different retelling. But that's what the Odyssey's all about. It's a poem and a story that was handed down generation by generation by and generation from Greek storytellers, and there's multiple versions, and we only have, I think, fragments of the original, you know, the original Homer epic. I don't think we've got all the pieces of it, but anyway, I thought it was really great, and I thought Nolan did a great job of making a movie that really kind of doubles down on that storytelling and the tradition of that tale being told to people for centuries, literally.
Yeah, I agree. I saw it the same week TJ saw it, and I was lucky enough to see it in IMAX 70. So there's 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 something to be said for filming in locations, not using a backlot, not changing stuff. He filmed all of that on locations. The water scenes were filmed on the water. You can actually tell that because in one scene where David, or in the Odyssey, where he's standing on the boat, you see dolphins jump through the picture, and that's just happened. The fact that they did that made it a much more realistic movie for me. You're right, Scott. I think that the telling of it was good. It was really good, and it was, and I feel the same way. Is that when I saw it, I thought it was a good movie. It's like a good movie. Yeah, I liked it. But the next day and the day after and the day after, and I was like thinking, this was so much better than I thought it was at first. And I don't. It's one of those movies where you just have to go and sit there and listen to it and watch it. And I've never seen a movie theater so quiet in a way. There's usually somebody looking on a phone or something like that that you'll notice, but you didn't see that during this movie at all. And it was people were drawn into it so much that I think it's a fantastic story, and I think he did a fantastic job with it. And it makes me wonder what he's going to do next. And so it was great. I really really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And obviously much has been said about the quote unquote historical accuracy.
Yeah.
And in my opinion on that is, I mean, look, I love historical accuracy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm sure we all do because we build models of historical. But at the end of the day, it's a movie.
Yeah.
And also to be fair, like there's a couple things to remember. A, in the telling of the story that we know that has survived this long, Homer, who probably wasn't even a real person, is describing something that probably didn't actually happen or did kind of happen, and this is the basis of the story, which is what I'm inclined to believe. Because Troy was a real place. There was evidence of catastrophic destruction of the city around the time that this poem is set. Chances are there was not a 10-year siege because that just wasn't a thing back then. But it's important to remember when Homer is describing what happens, specifically in the Iliad and how that siege was fought, he's not describing how actual late Bronze Age warfare was conducted. He or they, whoever, whatever you want to call it, we'll just say he for lack of a better term, he's describing the warfare in a way that the Greeks at the time probably would have understood it better. Because if you read the poem, the warriors ride into battle on chariots, they get out on chariots, and then they fight as infantrymen. That's not how late Bronze Age warfare was conducted in that area of the world. It was done mostly on chariots. You wouldn't get off of a chariot. It was like the single best war implement to use. And not only the fact that like Troy was a naval power, and so was Greece at the time, like especially the Greeks that fought, like, but there's no description of fighting in on the water, even though that's probably where it would have happened. So that's one thing. And two, there's kind of three things. Two, I don't care that they didn't use Mycenaean armor because it looks dumb. Like modern audiences would not, the typical average person, unless you're a super history nerd and you really care about the Bronze Age, would not respond well to what the armor and arms looked like at the time because it looks kind of goofy because it wasn't when people think ancient Greek they think of what Nolan used for better or worse that is what people think. Hoplite phalanxes were not a thing in the late Bronze Age, so I really don't care. And yeah, it's just like it was cool, and that's all I care about.
It
If you want you want an accurate version of it, go read the book, like it's or the poem.
Yeah, even though it's a story, but yeah, no, I agree, and I think the other thing is people don't cut Nolan a lot of slack. Like I really enjoyed Dunkirk, and it was a series of vignettes, and a lot of people really struggled with that format. And then what I liked about the Odyssey is it's about Odysseus trying to get home. That's not a spoiler. That's what the movie's about, right? And there are times when the plot is moving lightning fast where you're just like, I mean, you cannot turn away from the screen. There's moments of high peril, and then there are also moments that are maddeningly slow, and the pacing kind of reflects that. But anyway, I think it's a great movie. So
The other thing about historical accuracy, and obviously, like when the trailer dropped and like people freaked out over Agamemnon's looking like Batman, it when you actually watch the movie, A, you never see his face. And because anytime you see Agamemnon in the movie, it's Odysseus thinking about it, right? Or talking about it. So you have to understand like what you're seeing is how Agamemnon like looms in Odysseus's mind. Because to him, he is this he's like bigger than everyone else. Like he's I don't know if that kind of makes sense. Like you're watching a retelling of the story based on him retelling his story and remembering the story, right? So the things that and obviously like when they go to the island of the giants, people complained about that because they're wearing iron armor. Okay. It doesn't look like that doesn't look anything like late Bronze Age armor, but you're that's that's Odysseus and his men seeing that, right? And responding to that. And that's what you're seeing. You're not seeing what actually happened. And people kind of don't think about that.
Yeah.
They want like a very like, oh, this is how it happened. It's like, no, man, this is like art. This isn't.
Yeah.
It's like
It
I don't know.
it's like in Star Trek 2, the Wrath of Khan, they made the Reliant look different from the Enterprise, and they did that because at the first time they ran through the production pre-production visuals, they had the two ships looked identical, and everybody was like, "This is going to be terrible. The audience isn't even going to be able to follow this." So they made the design differently, and so yeah, I know I hear what you're saying. Well, TJ, what have you been working on? What's been on your bench, man?
Um, yeah, not a whole lot as we kind of talked before we started recording. I work a lot. I've been working a lot of overtime, which, is nice from a bank account. I don't, I appreciate that. My spare time is a little lacking and it's been hot as shit in Virginia lately. It's been a little bit better now, but there for a while it was like really hot. And I'm not like I don't work with my tools anymore, but I'm still out. Like I still have to walk around, and even just walking from the my trailer to the building or building to building, I mean, it's like immediate, just like worn out, and I got guys up on the roof that I got to go like check in, and it's just like it was it was hard, and yeah, doing that and then coming home, yeah, it doesn't make me really want to sit down at the bench. I'd rather just sit down and veg out and play some video games. But that being said, I have been working on my Hammerhead Corvette. It's I've got the whole front half, or a whole front section, not really half. Everything except the engine section. I can't remember the last time I was on and what I talked about or where I was. That's all been painted. I think the last time I was on, I just done a little test painting, and I got some really good feedback, and I'm going to incorporate that into the painting. But the base coat's on. I used Insignia White from Tamiya in the rattle can. It's awesome. It sprays so nice, and this thing's so big. It's way easier than trying to paint it with an airbrush. And I have Insignia White because the lacquer is a pretty good the lacquer jar. It's a pretty good match. So obviously there's some areas where because of the awkwardness of it and trying to spray, I'm gonna have to get in there with the airbrush to make sure I get a nice solid base coat on it. And yeah, and when working a little bit on my main SMC project, I'm a little worried because I am not as far along as I had hoped by this point. It's the end of July, and we realistically have 3 months, a little less than 3 months. But that being said, I looked at where I was last year and I'm not too far behind. And what I'm doing this year is a little less complex build wise. Paint wise is going to be probably more complex, but I feel like if I can get the painting or the building wrapped up soon, I'm getting ready to go to Michigan for a week too. So I'm going to lose a whole weekend, which sucks. That's a school thing. Yeah. And then let's see. The last thing is some of you guys have probably seen it by now. I printed a studio scale Y-wing using Elaine Rivard's gold leader files, and we're going to talk about studio scale I think a little bit later in the episode, but it is very large,
That's what we
very
call
very
a
large.
that's what we call a two-hander model. It's
Yeah,
huge, man.
it is. It's big. I knew studio. This is the first studio scale model I've ever worked on. I knew studio scale was big. I didn't realize it was this big. Like it's really, really big. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know what to do with it now, and it's not even completely put together, and I don't have anywhere for it to go. Yeah, that's the main thing.
You did a
And
one to one scale air conditioner repair.
oh yeah, yeah. That's why I'm so glad I do what I do. because that would have been probably a $500 to $700 service call. What happened was the fan motor on my condenser unit outside died, which it happens. Luckily, it wasn't too terribly warm when it died. It was about like 80 degrees. So if Jensen was here, that'd be too hot for him. But for Northern Virginia in the summertime with low humidity, 80 degrees was fine. Yep, $120 later for a new motor, 30 minutes worth of work, and I was back up and running. Here's a little secret. A lot of home HVAC work isn't really that hard. Changing a fan motor is a couple of screws and some plugs in the capacitor. As long as you follow your basic electrical safety and turn your unit off and press the contactor in to make sure there's no storage charge in the capacitor because that will you up. Yeah, it's not that hard. Don't just listen to me. Watch a YouTube video go, or read. But also, if you have any questions about air conditioning, you can ask me. I can probably help you.
That's right. The Plastic Posse podcast does not recommend anyone work on electrical devices. Please see a professional in the interest of safety, right?
Now, I will say, look, there was a time Amazon, for better or worse, is very helpful with this. There's a lot to be said about Amazon, what they've done to small businesses and all this stuff. But these days, you can get almost any part you need for your air conditioner from Amazon, where before that was common. You have to go to a HVAC supply house, and they do not sell to individuals. Now, because I work in the industry, they'll sell to me because I'll just tell them who I work for and I'll put it on on the cash account, which is fine. But yeah, these days, like if your capacitor goes, all you got to do is go look at what kind of capacitor you have, go on Amazon and buy it, and it's like a $12 part. And literally anyone can change a capacitor. And typically, when your air conditioner dies, that's usually the first thing that goes because that's what it's designed to do. But
So Grant broken any OSHA rules lately?
No, I wish I knew how to do that, but yeah. No, I haven't. Not lately. But I've been working. Finished up a kit yesterday, or a scratch build yesterday. Posted it on the page. I've been working on my other welding droid base. I redid the base for that, and then I posted it on a couple places, and people said don't do that way. So I kind of changed it up a little bit. So it was some good feedback, and so I went with that. I haven't started it yet, but I do have the new Tamiya Chaffee, the M24. I've looked at it several times. I keep on threatening to start it anytime here, but I know JB's are probably already finished, or I know he finished the build on it. I'm pretty sure. It looks like a really good kit to me. I've read a couple articles, both pros and cons. So we'll see how it goes for me, though. Other than that, not really too much. I mean, I'm just getting ready for the big show in October, which is, let me just check, 82 days away. So not that I'm counting down or nothing, but 82 days as of today. So we are getting closer and closer to that. So I'll have one more thing to finish up for that show, and I'll be done. And I'm about a month and a half to 2 months out, so I should make it in plenty of time with that build. So I'm looking good, looking better than I did last year. That's for sure. That's where I'm at.
What about what'd you finish? Oh, you finished that Star Wars build, right? Yeah.
Well, no, the J77 heavy lifter I finished yesterday.
Oh,
The scratch built from a person I'll mention here in a little bit, but from Sublight Drive. Got the basically I got the layout plans from him on Etsy, and you build it yourself. You basically just get 2 sheets and tells you what kind of sheet styrene to use, and you're kind of left at that, and you just build and watch his videos and stuff. So it's really good. It was fun. It was different. Putting a whole bunch of different greeblies on things. So that's always fun. So it was a good time. I enjoyed it.
So Steven, what have you been up to?
I've been working on that Machining Krieger Goblin that I got from Tokyo Hobby Market. TJ did one of those a few years back, and when he did his, I bought mine and built it and then stared at it. So I finally got around to painting that. And concurrently with that, besides T-34s, I like mutts, and the kits are not great. So Rubicon models just came out with an M151A1C, which has got the 106 millimeter recoilless rifle in it. It's tiny. It's like 2 inches long and 1.25 inches wide. But I had an inspiration pick that of a vehicle in the Lebanese Civil War that I've been thinking about doing for a while. And I'm working on that. And, I've got 30 some partially completed projects around as well that I kick over to once in a while. So, no magnum opus in progress, just a lot of enjoying several different things.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll get into more specifics with you later on in the episode, but let's just roll right into the models from the Plastic Posse group that caught our eye. So let's go over to TJ to start out. TJ, what caught your eye this week?
Yeah, I chose Christian Wolf's Edward A6M20. It's pretty cool. It's very heavily weathered. I think it's a training plane. It's pretty cool. Christian's a great modeler. I saw that I want to say maybe yesterday when I was at work. I was bored. I was kind of cruising Facebook a little bit, and I was like, "Ooh, this is really nice." So yeah, really liked it. Posted a funny picture as a comment. But yeah, it's good work.
Hey, he's I think he's kind of more of a recent contributor, or maybe he's been, in the group for a while, but we'll talk about some other things later on, but his rust and his decay and that zero, first of all, is really, really sharp. Really like it. I agree with your pick. But he's a heck of a modeler, and his work is really incredible. Really happy he's sharing that with us. Grant, what about you?
I picked Brandon Porter's 1/16 scale US Jeep engine. He's working. I believe it's the tag. I'm pretty sure it's a tag
Yeah.
kit.
Yeah,
it is amazing. I sat there and looked at those images for a little while today, or not today, last week whenever we posted them, and they are just phenomenally done. Great, just beautiful weathering on it. The OD colored engine block which they had, and it was just really, really, really nice, and it just stood out to me as something that's, you take that much care to do something for an engine you might not even see. That's impressive to me, and he did a really, really great job.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. I this is not a criticism in any way, but I think that Go Devil engine in that Tacom Jeep might be the best part of the kit. And I've seen a lot of builds of that kit. I've got a couple of them myself, and I think it's an opportunity lost potentially when a lot of people don't really detail that engine out. Had little extensions where the spark plugs come out. It's got distributors. The wiring's not there, so there's some opportunities there. But Brandon has done a great job with textures and colors on the exhaust manifold and on the Bakelite parts, like the distributor cap. Has really, really taken some care with that Go Devil engine. Really done a great job.
Yeah, he definitely stepped it up there. It's really nice, and you're right. That engine is beautiful. That kit. I don't know. I wish more people would spend a little bit more time and leave that hood open and stuff like that. It's probably, like you said, one of the best parts of the kit.
Yeah. Again, not being critical, just for me, I think it's a really good opportunity. It's probably one of the better plastic injection molded engines that's ever been created, probably. So I really like it. Anyway, well, Stephen, anything on the Plastic Posse catch your eye?
Well, yeah, I sort of lean more toward favoring construction in my building, and so I have so much respect for a handful of people out there who are just wizards. And Harvey Lowe posted he's working on converting the 1/35 scale Tamiya Chaffee. Well, he's got something going, and he's using the suspension off of that for an M41 Gorilla. And I've seen Harvey's completed work before. I ran into him at an AMP show in like 2015 where he built a Japanese engineering vehicle from World War II. And I just know this Gorilla is going to be amazing, and it's going to be fun to follow along with. So that's my pick.
Yeah, that's a good one. I really like that conversion, and Harvey's a great modeler, like you said. Really good. Well, I'm going to go with a figure that's not finished. It's kind of a work in progress, but it's from Scott Primo, and he's not usually very big on doing whip photos. He kind of tends to play things pretty close to the vest when it comes to that. But he's doing a model seller 75 millimeter figure, And Grant and TJ, I don't know if you guys have seen that, but his
Yeah.
face, oh my gosh. Scott is
Yeah.
just insanely talented. And particularly, I got to judge with him at MMSI. He was my lead. We did historical painting, and he kind of taught me, like in judging, kind of really what to look for in the face. But Scott, man, just absolutely crushing the face on that figure. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful. It makes me cold just looking at the face. I mean, it's a revolutionary figure from Valley Forge that he's doing, and it's amazing. And he's just got the face painted right now. It's already amazing. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's really good,
Yeah,
surprisingly.
yeah,
It just, yeah, the eyes on it. Yeah, if you guys haven't seen that or any of these models that we've talked about, head on over to our Plastic Posse group on Facebook. Please post your own work, and you'll see the Star Wars group build entries there, as well as other people's work that they're posting, and we'd love to see everybody's work there. So anyway, TJ, I will quit talking and turn things back to you to talk about some things.
Bases by Bill is your partner for creating attractive display bases for your scale models. With a variety of products and custom solutions, Armor modelers will find plenty of ways to present their work, from elegant cherry hardwood bases finished in 4 rich stain colors to our newest line of circular bases. These range in size from 6 to 11 inches and feature a removable insert to safely complete your groundwork. All bases are available with optional engraved text or full-color placards, unit emblems, and national insignia. And it's not just bases at Bases by Bill. We were selected to create the awards for the recent Rocky Mountain Expo, and we can help your club too with awards of all types and for every budget. Visit basesbybill.com because there's always something new at Bases by Bill.
Yeah, so instead of like one big discussion topic, I couldn't really, full disclosure, couldn't really think of anything. Um, Figured we could probably hit on a couple different things, kind of keep it loose and fast and breezy. And the first thing I want to start with, and this is a suggestion from a listener named Francois. He's a Canadian guy, and it was Rust. And I'm not too big on doing like a whole thing where we describe what we do and that sort of thing because it's a podcast. It's not, that's I think more reserved to like a visual medium, like an article or a YouTube channel. But I like Rust. I've done a number of Rusty projects. I did one last year, did one a couple years before that, and I've done a couple small ones here and there. And he was just kind of touch on it because there's a lot of products out there, and I'll start with my process. And now I don't do the same thing every time, but I've kind of narrowed it down to like this is where I at least want to start. And it's typically like over a black and like a reddish brown base coat. I normally use Tamiya paints. And I'm a big fan of the Life Color Rust set. And there's a particular way to use those that I don't know if everyone really knows. I feel like this is the way they're designed to be used, but I like to start with the lightest color first and thin it out like extremely thin. Like I'm talking like almost like far thinner than like even a wash consistency. And then either use a sponge, like a piece of torn foam or a sponge, and or like a ratty brush, and stipple that over the surface, over like the reddish brown base coat, the base color. And if there's a piece of rust on something that like there's paint into the rust, you know, make it so like a lot of times rust will like bleed into paint if you look at it. And you start with like that, it's like a yellow color. And then you just work your way up through I think there's like four or five shades. It's like yellows, browns, and you get this like really nice, like richly textured rust look. And from there, if you're doing like a chipped paint over it, then obviously you would put your chipping medium down, then whatever color you've done. So I've done like a rusty tractor that was like blue paint. It was one of the mini art tractors. That's how I did it there. I did it very similar process with the knocked out A1 I did last year. then once all the like me personally, once all my paint's done and the chipping, if there is any chipping, then I go to like the enamel products. And there's a couple like it's like rust deposits or something. I think it's an AK color. It's like a darker one, and then there's like a bright rust deposits that is like the color of my shirt, which you guys can't see, but I'm wearing like a safety yellow or safety orange shirt. It's like that, and I like to use that to like hit areas of detail or areas of interest where I want you to see. So like in my knocked out A1 on the inside, if you're looking through the driver's hatch, there's a box there, like to his left, and I made it all blown apart and whatever. So you can't really see much through that little hatch. So like on that piece, I use a lot of that really bright rust enamel. So when you do look into the hatch, that what light is in there, you see like, oh yeah, this is like really bright and rusty and burnt out. Yeah, that's what I like to do. I'm not a big fan of rust pigments. Not my thing. I guess you can do it. There's definitely videos of people out there doing it. I think there's like a pretty decent video on, I think maybe it's like Vallejo's YouTube channel about how to use Rust, or it might be on AKs. I can't remember. I'm not a big fan of that. Like, it's doable, but just it's not my style.
Yeah, rust is something. I think it's a lot like mud. I think that a little bit goes a long way, unless you're doing something, TJ, like you mentioned, like a burned out vehicle or something that's been, abandoned. I don't use a lot of it except for, mufflers and other things that are affected by heat kind of tend to be, I think, a little bit of an exception. But I know Spud is really, really good, and the Four Corners guys, they're all pretty good at it. But not just modeling rust as colors, but also as textures, and using that to good effect. I don't know, Stephen, what's your process for using rust on your models?
Well, it's a, I'll tell you this, it's a very perishable skill. So this is probably one of those times when a paint mule in these videos are really handy. But what I have done for Rust in the past, it's kind of a different approach than what you would normally do with a model. But you want to take a look at something similar to what you want to rust, because a tractor left out in the field for 30 years is going to have like a darker rust, and something that's burned is tremendous variety of colors in that rust. The most success I've had with rust, and I do use those AK products that TJ mentioned, and I use those more often for like an exhaust on a vehicle. But the most success I had with a rust technique was on a BRDM1 that was abandoned in Ukraine, and I used oils for that. And I did each panel individually, just painted that panel till it was done and moved on to the next one. And what I found was Uncle Nightshift talks about using oils, and he says he's got a pool of thinner for brush cleaning and one pool for basically cleaning up the area. And what I found is I would mix up a color that was not very intense, and I would start applying that to do the staining like TJ was talking about. And then as the work session continued and some of the thinner evaporated and I was cleaning the brush and adding more paint to it, your oils tend to hit a sweet spot where it's really the material is working just the way you wanted it, and you can make some good headway. The the long story short is this is one of those effects you got to invest the time and you got to look at some pictures. I know that's not very helpful, but that's what I have learned. I did find a couple of good videos while we were talking, though. I had it muted. The guy Accidentally Detail has a video titled "Turning Plastic into Steel, Rust Welds, and Metal." That's very good. And a modeler YouTube channel called Creative Crafts has Ultimate Realistic Rust Effects Tutorial. That's also very good.
Yeah, another good video would be Night Shift's Conqueror Mark II. He did a whole dio for it. I mean, obviously all the videos in the series are good, but the video where he painted it is really good. It's a very similar process to what kind of like how I do it. Yep, it's really good. I mean, he's done lots of Rusty things, but I think that's the most like Rusty's done, like abandoned vehicle. He's done like a knocked out Panther or something. But like Steve was saying, like, yeah, you got to look at what you're doing. Something that's been sitting outside for decades, like a Hulk, does not look the same as a burned out, like a freshly burnt out vehicle, because they're typically much brighter. Which, as we all know, there's lots of photos of burnt out tanks in the modern day. So yeah,
Yeah, you know what? Just thinking back to when I've done rust badly, um, you, it's not something you buy a jar of enamel rust product and a little bit of pigments, and you kind of apply those two, and you're like, wow, yeah, that's it. It's a layered effect, and you you sort of have to be enjoying it to put the time in. So probably the best advice is either take a piece of styrene and glue a couple of pieces of tube on it, put a weld on it, and try to rust that. Or you're going to have to pick a subject that you're really excited about to put in that kind of time.
yeah.
I noticed one of the when I was in MRS about a month ago, AK or ammo, one of them actually has kind of a jar of iron pigment that you put on, and then you hit it with another chemical, and it actually creates literal rust that you can put on your
Talking about
model.
I think they call it Dirty Down or something like that.
Yeah, something. And anyway, I picked up one of the bottles of the pigment, and that I mean, it's a heavy bottle, heavy glass bottle of where you're going to actually apply metal to your model. And obviously, you're not going to want to do that en masse, right? Not over the whole thing, but if you're building like a 1/16 scale Jeep, and you might want to put that on the muffler or the exhaust pipe or the exhaust manifold, and see what kind of effects that you could get, and then work with oils to maybe bring some additional depth to that.
Yeah. The other thing, kind of like to Steven's point, I would I kind of look at it like painting a face, right? You don't just buy like three skin colors and then bam, you can paint a face. Anyone that has seen a lot of my figures that I paint, especially my larger scale ones, I use a number of paints that do not have the word skin or flesh in the name, right? Because people are a lot of different colors, even white people like me. I'm not just like one color. Nobody is. And rust is like very similar. You don't think that you have to buy, oh, this color is called rust. That's the color I have to use. Um, yeah, I use the Life Color Rust set because it's very convenient, but I have lots of other colors that I've used. And I've posted some like whips both on my personal Facebook page and I think in the posse, and it's been in articles that I've written before that I'll use other colors that aren't specifically this is rust colored. And another I just thought about this. Spud Murphy has a really great breakdown of how he painted the rusty spare tracks. I think it was on his Achilles that I have followed in 35th scale, his or 16th scale. And if you go look at what he does, he doesn't use rust colored paints. Yeah, they're browns and beiges and that like oranges. I think he did maybe use a couple of the life color ones, but like the base coat is like a brown, not a rust brown, and then a beige. Um, because that can also, factor in. And don't be afraid to mix paints. I'll mix the life color paints too, because if I want a smoother transition between the whole spectrum of colors, yeah, just mix them together. Yeah, I think a lot of people get hung up on like I have to use this color for this and this color for that. And some of that I
Yeah.
feel like is because that's the way it's been marketed by AK and Ammo and Vallejo. And I get it. I understand why they do that because they try to make it simple. But it's the same thing when people that predominantly paint Games Workshop stuff, they move out of the GW mindset where it's like this color is this for this color is for that. When you break out of that and you realize, holy shit, there's like this paint range, like the AK third gen, there's like 300 colors. Yeah, get colors that are similar or similar to what you want in a different hue. It doesn't matter if it's the color for like this camo from this date. That doesn't matter. If it's a cool, like a nice looking brown color that you think can look nice as a rust color, just use it. Don't be forced to buy just the rust color because that's what it says on the bottle, right? Just like you can use airfield dust pigment for something that's not on an airfield, right? Like
Yeah,
don't, and that's,
exactly.
if this is probably more towards like people that are starting their journey. I think some of the journeymen and experienced modelers out there, we probably know this already, but if you're just starting your journey, don't, yeah, that's a good place to like a springboard, but don't kneecap yourself by thinking you have to use rust for a rust color, or I have to use this color for my German red brown. Like if you look at stuff that JB's painted, I guarantee you, and he'll be the first to tell you, yeah, I don't always just use the bottle that says German red brown. I will either mix it or I found a color that I like that works, that sells the color to you, to the viewer. So
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. And you also mentioned Spud, he's really good at reminding us that the sheet metal of an exhaust pipe does not rust the same way that a track link casting, a bare, unprotected casting does. And, look for inspiration. Like all of us have industrial garbage cans and dump trucks and bulldozers. Everybody drives past this stuff every day. Old buildings with, downspouts on the side of the building and old HVAC equipment, old doors that are corroding. So look around you for inspiration. But I mean, it might be the farm tractor down the street. In my case, there's a lot of farms around where I live, so I see a lot of tractors. But like I said, everybody sees bulldozers and shovels and hoes, and you can find inspiration. Grant, your presentation that you did, I can't remember what you called it, but the vehicles that have additional armor welded
hillbilly
on
armor.
them. Yeah,
Hillbilly armor.
hillbilly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, where find inspiration. Grant, where do you find your inspiration?
You just said it. I mean, it's everywhere. Around here, there's not a lot of tractors or anything like that, but we have a lot of construction equipment. And that is probably, in my opinion, one of the best things you can get reference material from, especially because it's painted yellow, and yellow and rust, and they kind of really go together, and the dirt and everything. So that's where I get mine. For when I do my rust, I'm kind of like you. I kind of keep it simple to the exhaust pipes and when I'm doing stuff like that. I have tried that dirty down the fluid, the rust colored stuff. It's nice. It's good. But the thing I like about rust is that it's more of a texture than anything else. It is, it's color and everything like that. But if you look at rust closely, it's flaking, it's pitted, and it gives you that opportunity to, advance your skills a little bit and try something, especially in 35th scale. It's really easy, not easy, but it's really convenient to just throw some paint and some texture stuff on, or not texture, but just some dust and stuff like that on your,
Yeah.
and you're off you go. But if you take a little bit of time, like people you've said, there's some really good builders out there that do cars, 124 scale cars, that do rusted out cars and stuff like that. There's a local guy, Pedro, who's in our group out here, who does basically kind of like beaters and stuff like that, and equipment trucks and 18 wheeler haulers and dumpsters and stuff, dump trucks, and he does some amazing work, and he does it with texture, and then he'll go in with that. So when I do kind of paint, I like to see it as a more of a texture than anything else. Now, you guys brought up some good points about the different colors of rust. As rust sits out in the atmosphere and the oxygen level, it does get dark. It gets extremely dark. New stuff, new rust or burnouts are black and orange, basically, is what you're looking at. And white. Don't forget the white when you do a burned out vehicle. And you just have to use what you think. And look at other modelers, look at real life pictures. Just put in burned out vehicle in Google, and you're going to get a million hits. And so just use your reference, do what you like. Those kits are nice. I don't like to use straight up rust products. I like using like a leather brown or a darker brown for the first coat, just because it looks better to me. It looks more rusty and then a rust color.
Yeah.
And then just shades of orange, shades of a little bit of shades of red. I like AK's wine red. It's a beautiful color. And that's another color you can use instead of a rust color. The oranges, of course, the yellows. So, just find a system you like, do like, we've said here, use a paint dummy and just, practice a little bit and there you go.
Scott, some great things were just said, so I want to circle back and hit some highlights. If you drive by something rusty, pull over, you got your phone, photograph it.
Mhm.
Start to build yourself a little library. And just to encourage that, when I get off of our call this morning, I'm going to get onto the posse and I'm going to post a few inspiration pics. And
Nice.
if we
Yeah.
get some of the other folks to pile on, there are some really awesome paint effects out there that I walk past every day. The other thing I wanted to talk about is and Grant already hit on it. If you're using just a product called rust, you also need to have a white, a black, an orange, and a yellow, and employ sponging and speckling too. You wouldn't think so, but it really adds a lot. You can start off with like a hull red or like a red brown as a base, but for something that's a lighter piece of sheet metal, for example, an car's exhaust, medium gray is good with some light rust effects over it. Really pops. And since I was talking about oils, if you're going to rust with oils, get yourself a raw sienna and a burnt umber. Those are really, really good colors. But
Yeah.
but don't ever hesitate to circle back and speckle your rust with a little bit of yellow. Speckle, and oh yeah, if you have a burnout vehicle, the transition line between where there's paint on there and where there's rusted raw metal, there's going to be a line of white because that's the oxidized paint laying there. And I don't know if you guys remember Scratch Mod.
That is a name I've not heard in a long
Yeah,
time.
well,
A long time.
he's a good friend of mine. He's moved to Germany, and he's kind of gotten out of models and into astronomy. But Rob Ferrer, great guy, and he looked at one of my models one time and he said, "You got paint here and you got rust there." That guy. Certain people are able to their brain catalogs information differently than mine, and they're picking up on details. And when they paint something, you look at it and you go, "Wow." And I think Rob had a flair for rust like
Yeah.
nobody I ever saw.
I think if JB were here, he was like, how could you be this far into a discussion on Rust and not have mentioned Adam Wilder?
Yep.
His layers and techniques books, his Adam's armor books, and something that everyone has access to at no cost. His KV series, step by step on YouTube, is still, I mean, that's like a reference that everybody can go to and step by step see what he does. And Rust obviously is a major component of that series. So yeah, the Adam Wilder KV series on YouTube is still just an incredible reference if you don't want to go outside and get your shoes muddy taking pictures of bulldozers and dump trucks and garbage trucks.
Could not agree more. Adam just did something on jerry cans that everybody should watch. A very, very modest guy considering the gigantic talent. It's a pleasure to be around people like that.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, TJ, I mean, Francois, thanks for the post and the idea. But yeah, Steven's going to post some rusty shots, and all of the listeners out there, if you guys have a rust technique you love, share it with us. Post some pictures, or if you've got some local inspiration around you that could be helpful as a reference, post those pictures in the posse group.
Yeah, pile on.
All right, so the other thing I wanted to touch on, and this might get a little spicy, and because I have opinions.
Everybody, this is where you fasten your seatbelt.
Yeah, I mean,
This is where Grant says, these are just opinions. Everybody has opinions.
It's not super spicy. I mean, maybe it is a little bit, depending on who you are. And we might have talked about it before. I honestly can't remember. But since I just kind of like got into it a little bit, yeah, studio scale modeling, specifically studio scale Star Wars, because a lot of people not a lot of people, but a couple people like Brian Dinklow asked me when I post the picture of me holding that thing. He's like, "Hey, what scale is that?" It is 1/24th, which is mostly studio. It's mostly 1/24th. I don't know if they're like exactly. It's close, but all the studio scale models for Star Wars, the filming miniatures, were roughly 1/24th scale for the starships, the starfighters. Um, and yeah, if you're not into Star Wars modeling or sci-fi modeling, you may not know what studio scale is, but it is a thing, and it is a big thing. And I know I've made comments about it before. I have a complicated view on studio scale modeling, and honestly, a lot of it is predicated on some of the personalities involved. And I'm not going to name names because it's just, look, it's my opinion and how I feel about certain people. But there's some personalities in the studio scale community that I don't particularly care for. They have very high opinions of themselves and they like to guard their quote unquote secrets. And I just can't get into that. And I'm not a big fan of that. And the weird thing is like, it was one of the Y-wing models. It was held by a private collector and he wouldn't let people take pictures of it, and it's like this whole thing, and I don't understand that. No one wants to steal your model. Let people take pictures of it. And I think that's maybe changed now. He may have finally let people take pictures of it. But there's a lot of that. Not a lot, but there's enough of that in that community that really chaps my ass. Now on the flip side, there's a overwhelming majority of people are not like that, and the community is very welcoming and kind and will share the knowledge of what they have because it's kit archaeology and studio scale modeling is a that's like a whole thing unto itself. And I admit that my view on it has been tainted by a few bad actors, and I fully admit that that is not the experience that I have had personally. It's just what I've seen here and there, but on a whole, it's a great community. There's just some personalities, but hey, you get that in our hobby too. I'm sure someone thinks that I'm an asshole and they don't like me, and yeah, hey, that's fine. Like, okay. But yeah, so that being said, I've kind of gotten into it a little bit, and my buddy Devin, he texted me, I think after I posted a picture of me holding the cockpit of my Y-Wing, and he's like, I distinctly remember you not being a fan of studio scale. And I was like, yep, guilty as charged. All I can do is be humble and eat crow and admit that I was wrong. It's pretty freaking sweet. Me personally, I don't care that your studio scale stuff is 3D printed. There's a lot of not a lot, there's a handful of purists out there that claim if it's 3D printed, that's not really studio scale. I've heard that from a pretty well-known studio scale modeler, and I don't give a to put it bluntly. That I think is a stupid attitude, and it's a disservice to the community to act like that. Just because yours is scratch built from original donor parts doesn't make it better than mine that, I 3D printed and spent time and money on as well. Just because you spent more money on yours, I'm sorry, that just doesn't make it better. And I don't know, that may upset people, but may not. I don't care. Again, that attitude is not prevalent, and I accept that now. And I think I was wrong to think that was a majority of the people in the community. But yeah, it's freaking cool. This thing's huge. It's so freaking big. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I yeah,
Yeah,
it
where is
makes me
that
want to
thing gonna
dude, I
live?
have no idea. I have no clue. It's I don't even know where my hammerhead's gonna go, and it's not even as big as the Y-wing.
For
Um,
listeners, if you have not seen this on the Plastic Posse, take a look. But TJ posted a picture, and it's
no,
just
it's on my personal Facebook page, but it's public, so you can that post is public, so you can see it, even if you're not friends with me. If you just look up my name.
And please make sure you look at Chris Medding's comments and all the responses. Absolutely hilarious.
Yes, but to kind of like circle back, what is studio scale? It's exactly what it sounds like. It is recreating the filming miniatures from typically the original trilogy in the scale that they were built by ILM in 1976 before they started filming the movies. I know Grant is is very familiar with the studio scale community, and yeah, it is pretty cool. I freely admit that I was wrong, and once you actually hold one in your hand and you see it in person, you're like, wow, this is pretty rad. And like I said, there's ways to go about it. There are a lot of guys that will do the traditional studio scale building where they either take like a lot of that stuff was like here's a little secret. They cast a lot of stuff after they built one, so they could build multiples of them. And there's a lot of castings of original pieces floating around. And that's again, that's a there in my opinion, there's like separate camps in the studio scale community, right? Like there's the what I like to call the purists where they want to build a one-to-one recreation of the thing from the movie. I have said before, I'm not too big into that because as Grant can attest, and I know Scott can too, if you actually see the filming miniatures, they are not they are
Yeah.
not good. Um and there's a lot of people they want to get that exact spill from where the whoever painted it spilled paint on it by accident or whatever.
Yeah.
They want to match the flaws in the kit or in the filming miniature. And me personally, that's not my thing. I don't care that people do. That's cool. I when I so like for my Y wing, my plan is to yeah, I'm gonna generally follow a filming miniature, but I'm gonna paint it like I would a normal scale model. Tested had a video with Jason Eaton from Wonderfest where he's doing that with the studio scale X-Wing, where it's studio scale. It's based on one of the filming miniatures, but he went extra on it, right? He talks about it in the video. He's like, hey, I'm not just gonna rebuild a filming model. I went the extra mile. I'm doing stuff that I wouldn't do on a replica of a filming miniature. Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's all I gotta say. I don't know, Grant can probably talk about it as well.
Yeah, I'm the same way. There's two different areas, and it's nothing bad about it. I don't think there's people that like to be specific. Jason Eaton is one of those guys. Sometimes he does stuff that's straight up right out of the movie, but also he does like his X-wing that he's doing now, where he rebuilt the whole cockpit. Did a different figure, did different placements of things, and just made it for himself. I like kit bashing, so I like to do if I can afford it at the time. Some of those kits are getting really expensive to kit bash stuff, but not the starships. Of course not. I would 3D print those because they're as you can see the size of those things is unbelievable. It is amazingly large. There, I have seen. Unfortunately, I have seen some of the same things in the past where people will definitely hide information on purpose because I don't know why. I'm not going to get into that. But with the group, with groups like RFM, you've got the Nerf Herder website and podcast. The groups like that, they are extremely open. They allow anybody in. You can ask any question, and it seems to me that I have never run into a bad person on those sites. I've always run into people that are willing to help, willing to give up parts if they want to, and sell them or give them up or anything like that. And it's been I think, not to say, can't sound super corny, but it's kind of a renaissance now. Where before, years ago, it was a lot worse, and now I think it's a lot more open, where people are sharing ideas. And a lot of that is because of 3D printing, I think, and the ability to scan old castings and make them on a 3D printer now. It's growing, I think, and it's a fun atmosphere to be in. But there's no difference between a kit bash and a 3D print. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, it's still the same thing. You're still building it, you're still painting it, and you're still making it whatever it is. So I don't see an issue or a problem with people like that. What do you think, Scott?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've just done a couple of little pods, and you chose the sort of kit archaeology route. I mean, what was your experience with trying to run down the kits that you needed for the parts, and how were people in your journey of obtaining those components and getting the pieces together to do it that way?
It's hard because we're talking about luckily Tamiya still has a lot of their 70s catalog available. The Gephardt, the M60, the Sheridan, the old Sheridan, some of the other older kits. A lot of their motorcycles from the 1970s are still around. The issue you come into to try and find parts is their Indy cars and their rally cars
Yeah.
and 1/12 and 1/24 scale. They used a lot of those. Oh, and also the C Lab kit. It was re-released last year. Or this year, whatever. That was a kit before it was re-released was hundreds of dollars. We're talking $500, $600, $700, $800 a pop. And you need like 12 of them to do a Millennium Falcon, the big scale one. But now it's been re-released and you can get them for whatever. But it was hard. I did a lot of I think a thing that's helped me a lot the most though is eBay, where you can buy sprues and not the whole kit. So you can look for a 1/12 scale, 1/24 scale Indy car. Let's just say a Ferrari F1, whatever. And you can find the sprue that you need, the number, the letter sprue, and you can buy that sprue. Now that sprue might cost you $45, $50, whatever. And you're using one part of it, but it's, you still have that instead of a $150, $200 kit. It's hard. It really is. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. When you figure it out, when you trace down a part and you find a part and you find out what part it is, and and when you look at what they did and what how they put everything together, it was such, for lack of a better word, slap shot kind of stuff. It was just, and this is back when there was no super glue at first, and they didn't, and when the builders came in, one of the builders said, hey, there's this thing called super glue. And he took a pencil and put it on the end of a table and glued it, and they all freaked out because they had to wait for something to dry before they could put the next part on. And so, things like that. And it's just, I just, everybody's like, oh, it's really easy just to throw a whole bunch of parts together. No, first of all, you got to find the parts. Second of all, you've got to figure out how they put them together. And third of all, it becomes a hard labor. It's a labor of love, yeah, because you love to do it. But that's why I built my escape pod or my droid pod in 1/48 scale instead of 1/32 scale, because you need that Hasegawa 1/72 scale railgun. You need 5 of those just for that one kit, just to build that one pod.
Jeez.
And so I said, oh, I can't do that. And I just said, well, I'll just 3D print that part. So I went into and I made my own 3D printed part for it, and I just did it that way. And so it's it's going to eventually, because those kits are not going to be around forever, and then they're eventually going to run out. People are going to they're going to be like, okay, well, what do I do now? You're going to turn to 3D. You're going to turn to castings, and that's just the way it's going to go. I don't you can be a purist all you want, but eventually you're not going to be able to get what you need, and you're going to have to rely on a 3D printed part. So just might as well accept it now.
I think that's what might be leading to the renaissance you're talking about is, we have choices as modelers. I've got a 1/24 scale Viper I printed, and, the Galactica stuff was also done by ILM as well as the Star Wars stuff. But, to find pictures of anything that's left, back to the comment made earlier that they would make one model and then they would cast copies, and in the filming for Battlestar Galactica, most of those models got either exploded completely or exploded a little bit so that those effects would end up on screen. And so a lot of times the 3D printed parts are just a different approach, but certainly have a lot more fidelity to them, a lot better fit, a lot better precise panel line scribing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, if you've ever worked with an MPC kit, you know exactly what not fitting models is like.
Oh man, you just gave this old Star Wars modeler a flashback. Just had the hairs on the back of my neck just stood up.
Yeah, and another thing to what TJ was saying is that none of these things were the same. They built these stars, these X-wings, and they didn't always have the same amount of parts or the same parts. They just found something that looked like it and they put it on there, and that's why they're all so different. And there's like they had versions that were for explosions that were only used to be blown up, which are basically just made of nothing. And they had, the hero versions, of course, and all that kind of stuff. They had a filmy version, they had a large scale, they had a small scale, all these different things. And they weren't the same. They were never, they were just made of different things. And, if you just kind of have to accept that. And no matter what you do, you just got to live with it and have fun with it. I mean, again, it's plastic, glue, and paint. That's all it is, guys. I mean, we don't have to get, we don't have to blow our tops over because someone decided to use a 3D printer over a excuse my language, 1972 T-72 turret. So just mellow. It's fun, guys. So.
Let me offer this about studio scale. I know nothing about it. But
right.
Just generically talking about somebody who's, hey, look what I've done, and no, I'm not telling you anything. There was an episode where recently, I mean, the last 5 or 6, and JB talked about how he loved this hobby. And, in all seriousness, I think like if I was created to model. Now, I have to make concessions, and I have to decide that I want to provide for my family just a little bit more than I want to be up in this tank room. However, this is a joyful endeavor, and you should share it.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Amen, brother.
All right. Well, before we move on, I'll just drop a couple of resources here, and hopefully we can link some of these in the show notes as well. Grant already mentioned the Nerf Herders Workshop. It's a Facebook group, predominantly studio scale, Star Wars stuff. Really cool group. I joined a couple, maybe like a month ago. A wealth of information, lots of cool work going on in there too. There's a lot of work in progress and finished work. Highly recommended. Check it out. Join the group if you can. As far as like reference websites go, someone asked, I think in the posse group, if there's a good reference, what some reference websites are. My go-to has been for years when I first got into modeling Star Wars was the Modelers, Miniatures, and Magic. They have it's all sci-fi stuff. I think I don't think they really have anything else for various different properties. They have a whole thing for Star Wars. Lots of photos of the filming miniatures, both like taken during filming and in the current state they're in now, because they kind of sometimes they tour. They'll bring them out and you can look at them. So I heavily recommend that. As far as STL sources, you've heard us talk about it before. Scott can attest.
Yep.
I have to give a shout out to Elaine Rivard's model shop. Yep. I've printed multiple things from him. Fantastic files. To my eye, very accurate. I can't see anything that, stands out. Easy to assemble. They're designed in a way that facilitates relatively painless printing. I know we mentioned before, you have to know what you're doing with the 3D printer. We're going to touch on that here in a minute when we move on to the last little thing to talk about. But when you figure out, once you get your stuff dialed in, you figure out what you're doing. Yes, highly, highly, highly recommended. Elaine's a good dude. Files are fantastic. And yes, that's really good. There's some good Etsy shops out there. I know we mentioned them before. Jeff's 3D Creations, I think he's the one that did the Fondor Hallcraft from Andor that I've printed. Fantastic. Big Bang Collectibles is another really good one.
Yep.
It's run by a guy named Colin, I believe. I've printed a couple of his things, and there's a couple other ones out there. Just look around. Do your research. Don't just buy the first STL that you find. Just kind of look around. As far as like publications go, the old standard is Sculpting a Galaxy. So it's out of print. You can get the Japanese edition for a fairly decent price these days on eBay. There's a couple other books out there too of like the history of ILM and all that kind of stuff, but the go-to is Sculpting a Galaxy and the RPF. I know we've kind of mentioned it before. It's a traditional old school forum. It's got its own quirks and that kind of stuff going on, but there is a good amount of information that can be found on there.
Yeah, going back to Elaine, he does a lot of what we've been talking about, where he'll go out and he'll get the kits with those old parts when he's doing the Sandcrawler. If he knows that he needs the Hasegawa 72nd scale M48, because that's what ILM uses, he'll go get them and make sure the files are good. Also want to give a shout out to Sophie Rose. does some amazing STL files and designs. I think working on a U-wing right now, which is going to be available for purchase. So yeah, like TJ said, if you look around, you can find some good resources. But Elaine is fantastic. He's a good dude. He makes models printable and has really nice features. I know TJ's mentioned in the Hammerhead Corvette, putting hollowed sections where you can put rods and tubes inside the model, and also allowing for lighting, things like that are a really nice touch, so that you don't have to print beautiful parts and then take a drill to them, so things like that really make a big difference. So yeah, another shout out to Elaine, and his stuff is Elaine Rivard Model Shop.
Yes, that's a good one. I forgot to mention Sophie. She goes by Rose Drive Yards on Facebook. That's her page. Fantastic work. A lot of not just Star Wars, but also Star Trek, which it's maybe a little heretical. I freaking love Star Trek. I'm a Star Wars guy through and through. Don't get me wrong. I have Star Wars tattoos. I freaking love Star Wars. But you know what? Star Trek rules. Yeah, I've never done a Star Trek model. I want to someday. I have the model from Galaxy Quest, which is the best Star Trek movie outside of Star Trek, that I'd like to do one time. But anyways, that's a story for another time.
It's a good movie, man.
But yeah, so my last thing I wanted to touch on is we may have done this before. I can't remember, or a variation of this, and but I think it's a good refresh if we've already done it. Is a sleeper hits, and what I mean by sleeper hit, a creator, a modeler, a YouTube channel that has a wealth of information that maybe the general modeling audience isn't really aware of, but deserves recognition. And the first one I want to start with, and it goes into 3D printing, is the Lychee Slicer YouTube channel. I might have mentioned this on an episode before, but hot damn, it is really, really good. And multiple people like Jackson, our buddy Jackson, who's very good, with his printer and 3D modeling. He didn't even know they had a YouTube channel. I cannot recommend that channel enough. Yes, there's a lot of Lychee specific content on there, obviously. But that being said, the presenter whose name escapes me in this moment, he used to have a separate YouTube channel, I think, before he went to work for Lychee. He's an American dude. Now he's based in France, where Lychee is based out of. Um, just the general information in the walking through the process and the steps to getting a good 3D print, I feel has been invaluable. Because anyone that's done a lot of 3D printing knows it's not just point and click. It really isn't. And even if you're using pre-supported files, you still have to know what the hell you're doing. Obviously, pre-supported helps, but a lot of these files that we've been talking about are not pre-supported, and you got to learn how to do this stuff. And I cannot recommend this channel enough. If you're interested in 3D printing, whether you use Lychee Slicer or not, I recommend Lychee. That's my preferred slicer. Check this channel out because he breaks down print orientation, layers, supports, all that kind of stuff. And you see it a lot, especially on like the resin printing subreddit. People just buy these printers and they think they can just do whatever, and they don't understand why they're getting failures. He has a whole series on the channel of diagnose this failure, where people from the Lychee Discord have posted pictures saying, "Hey, this is my failure." He'll break down why that print failed and how to fix it. So if you're getting into it and you're having a hard time and you need a good place to learn the basics, I cannot recommend that channel enough. There's a couple other really good ones too. Don't get me wrong. Faux Hammers are a really good one. He's got a lot of information about 3D printing. But yeah, the Lychee Slicer YouTube channel, I'm just gushing on at this point, but damn, it is good.
Yeah, it gets really granular too. He gets into general, like, why are your prints failing, how to get prints to print faster, but it's also like the ins and outs of resins and which ones that are being used and why, and just the settings of the slicer and things that you can do. Because let's face it, if we really broke it down, if we were able to measure it, I think probably a significant amount of the failures that happen in resin printing is because of the way that objects are oriented and sliced. And I think it's really valuable. So yeah, I'm going to echo TJ on that. And also, and I don't remember his name either. That's terrible. I should know his name, but his favorite printer is the printer that I love too, which is the Anycubic M3 Premium, which is very, very hard to find and out of production. But he that's his favorite printer, and kind of cool. So
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on what you were saying is, Scott, if you're new to 3D printing, your prints failed because of something you did. Just that is like 9.9 times out of 10,
yep,
it is something you did. There are hardware error like mistakes that with any consumer electronic, you will get bad units. It's rare, in my opinion, but chances are, if you're printing something and it didn't work, you did something wrong. Some people have a hard time understanding that, but it's kind of like the printer's only going to do what you tell it to do. It's kind of like driving a clutch on a car. It only responds to the user,
yeah.
right? Like a clutch just does not work, right? Like if it breaks, it's probably something you did. And 3D printers are the same way. So yeah, before you
That's
get
it.
into it, do some research, do some reading,
That-
watch some videos.
That's a great analogy. A clutch. Let the clutch out slow. Everybody's had an experience with that, teaching somebody to drive a stick. So it's good. Yeah, yeah. No, it's a great great topic, TJ.
Dude, that's my sleeper hit.
All right, awesome. Well, my sleeper hit is one that our guest Stephen Reid already mentioned once, and I'm gonna call out again. I did this a couple of episodes ago, but Accidentally Detailed is a new channel, and he doesn't have a lot of content yet, but it's really compelling. And Stephen also mentioned, his BRDM diorama, which is really good. That's what kind of caught my eye and everything. So if you haven't seen that channel on YouTube, take a little bit of time and go over to Accidentally Detailed and check it out. I think you're going to like it.
You mentioned Accidentally Detailed, and it reminded me he has the Rust video. I think I already mentioned it. Very
Yeah.
good Rust video.
Yeah.
The BRDM he did is Chernobyl wreck too, which is always kind of a unique and interesting
So cool.
subject.
Yeah.
There's a book coming out too about vehicles in Chernobyl. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I backed the Kickstarter on that. I've got a copy coming.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
I got one
excited
too.
about it.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. That'll go right to work in my office, so I can twist people into talking about from Chernobyl to talking about modeling.
There you
Um,
go.
so sleepers. I'm just going to hit five that if you're an armor modeler, you just can't. These are the common ones that everybody should watch, and obviously it's Martin Kovac, anything by Adam Wilder, Panzermeister 36, Cold Demons PL, and Plasma. So I just did exactly what you didn't want to do. The sleeper hits, but it's a counterpoint because those are all armor, which is primarily what I do. But there's a YouTube channel that does something that the modeler does things that I don't do, but I just can't stop watching it. And I think that a lot of people would enjoy it if they discovered it. And that channel is Cut Transform Glue.
Yep.
This is a gentleman in South America. I don't know exactly where, but he's in South America. He speaks excellent English. There's no kind of language barrier or anything. But he dismantles printers, keyboards, computers. He cuts he laser cuts items out of MDF, and he 3D prints, and he builds robots that are completely from his imagination, robots and spacecraft. And it's really interesting. I know I mentioned it to you before we started recording, but you guys have seen it, right?
Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah, he'll take a clock radio, and the next thing you know, like you said, he's made a starship out of it. It's really, really fascinating the way that he'll take the parts and harvest them and kind of collect them and then put them all together. It's definitely a skill. Seeing things in your mind, when you've got a box of gears and electric shavers and toothbrushes, and you can picture it, kind of all coming together. It's in a gizmology, not unlike what we've been talking about with ILM.
He's also a very organized guy. He's got boxes and boxes and boxes of parts all sorted by size and function and everything else. That's kind of neat to watch if you enjoy having OCD.
Yeah,
I really recommend that. I think that's an undiscovered gem out there on YouTube.
yeah. His name is Henrique, and he is Brazilian.
Brazilian, thanks.
Yeah, that's another like Stephen. We were talking about that earlier too. I don't know how I found that dude's channel, but I don't know if it got recommended to me. But I was like, what is this? And I watched him like, man, this is like some cool. Like
It's
this
really
is
neat,
really
man.
cool.
Yeah, I really like that channel. Like to see him. I'd like to see him do as well as Martin Kovac. Really, he's a neat guy.
Well, I'm
Great.
gonna throw mine out there. I've got two. One I've talked about before is Sublight Drive. He's a scratch builder. Somewhere in the idea of the same individual we just talked about. He'll take anything and build it out of sheet styrene. He'll make it all himself, most of it. He does copy some. He did do a couple of the one of the Star Destroyers from, I can't remember right now, but he's built a couple Star Destroyers or a Star Destroyer. He's built some of the spacecraft. He's done a whole lot of his own scratch building. Really good builds. Really fun to watch. Really see what he does with a scriber, a pen, and some glue and some sheet styrene. What he can do. It's
Does
just a
he?
fun page.
Grant, does he sell digital versions of his designs that you
Yeah,
can?
he sells. That's the one
Yeah,
I built. I just finished. I just did. He basically he sells you the cutouts. Basically, you just
yeah.
cut, you scribe it down, and you scribe it out, and then you just do everything else to it. So he does that on Etsy. He has his own Etsy page under the same name. So and also he's on Instagram by the same name. So it's really fun, really good builder. He's done some amazing things with just junk off his table, old kits and everything. It's just been amazing.
Awesome. Well, thanks for all those recommendations. And for listeners out there, if you have some sleeper hits, some YouTube channels that are maybe a little less known that you really enjoy, post those on the Posse. Let's share them out to everybody and get some exposure for the creators. It's a lot of work making those social media outlets and taking the time to film videos and everything. And let's give them some support and see if we can't help them out. Well, TJ, we have been joined by an armor rock star, Mr. Stephen Reid. What do you say we have a chat with him and find out who he is and what he's all about?
Well, with that introduction, I hope you're wearing hip waders because it's getting deep. I'm Stephen Reid. I've been talking this whole episode, so hopefully I haven't made a fool out of myself. The more you talk, the more likely you are to say something stupid. I have been interested in T-34 modeling for a long time and built a lot of the kits and really enjoyed being involved in that side of the hobby. I'm involved in two Facebook groups. One is the T-34 interest group, which is history and research. And then we also, with the same group of guys, we developed the T-34 scale modeling group, and that's more about scale modeling. We get into how to paint things and what kit is the best to do which version, and it's a good time over there. We don't shy away from what ifs on that. If you want to build a what if, more than welcome. And that's kind of high level on T-34s. We were going to talk about T-34s. And most common question I get is, if I'm going to buy one kit, which one should I get? And the first thing that I would say in that regard, excuse me one second, my air conditioner's kind of getting loud. What I would say in that regard is, if you like T-34s, you should be able to determine whether you want to build a 76 millimeter arm T-34, which would be more the early war years toward the middle, and or a T-34 85 millimeter. And if you want to build a T-34 85 millimeter, right now there is the RFM Ryfield model makes a handful of great modern kits that are a joy to build and don't require a lot of aftermarket. So if you wanted to build like a late World War II, I would recommend their factory 183 model. If you want to build late war, would also be their factory 174, but in the historical photographs, more often you see the 183s. And then if you want to build a post-war T-34, I would recommend you get the T-34-85 Chinese Volunteer. It's got all the post-war features. If you want to build a T-34-76, Dragon kits are the way to go for that. And the one that I recommend often is a kit called it's numbered 6479, and that is a Krasny Sormovo late model. It's not a Cyber Hobby kit; it's a Dragon kit, and that one's a real nice model. Goes together well. And then beyond that, if I always say to build the perfect T-34, you've got to build a lot of them, and you got to enjoy it. So I would start off with either one of those and just enjoy it. And if you decide you want to get down in the weeds, similar to what Sherman builders do with, talking about factories and this hatch and that hatch, and they didn't go to this mud guard until, October of 1944, that kind of stuff. You can get into it like that, but generically speaking, just those first two would be great. Once you decide you really want to get serious about T-34s, and what you will find very, very early on is that T-34s were used and rebuilt many times, typically, even before you got into the post-war period. So it's kind of fascinating to take a photograph and say, I want to build a model with all these features. And that's when it really, you either enjoy that kind of stuff or you don't. And I enjoyed that. If you're going to go that route, this is going to sound like a crazy recommendation, but you should start to look for all of the Cyber Hobby and Dragon kits and have at least one of every single one of them, because you look at these features and you say, well, it's got that turret and it's got that type of fender and it's got this type of hatch, but the suspension is different. It's different road wheels, it's different track. And it's fun to be able to just go through your parts and pick out the features you want and combine them. The Dragon kits, all the parts will fit. The axle diameter is the same, so you can swap road wheels and swap tracks and everything else. But that's kind of just a primer on T-34s. You guys got any questions about them?
So I'm going to take a step back and ask you, why the T-34? What is it about the T-34 that drew you to them?
I have no idea. Honest to God, I don't have any Russian family members. I mean, the earliest memory I have is there was a television show called The Forgotten War that was on when I was probably 12 or 13, and it was on at like 10 o'clock at night. I had to make a deal with my parents that I'd lay down for an hour and then get up and watch it. I don't know. I don't really believe in reincarnation, but maybe I was killed in one of these things at one point.
Forgotten War was a great series. That just brought the hairs in the back of my head back up. I haven't seen that forever.
Yeah.
I will
tell you this, like, you talk about Star Wars, there's always a fascination with the Darth Vader of any story, right? The villain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even in Rugrats, they had Angelica. So here you got the villain of World War II is the Tiger Tank and the Panthers and everybody's fascinated with them. They've got the greatest color schemes. But I started building a lot of Panzer IVs back when Italieri was the best Panzer IV, and the suspension just took so long. And then I built a SU-85, and I was like, this whole suspension's got like 30 parts. It's great. So I did like that. If there was one thing that drew me to it, I guess it was that. And then there were a few very sharp guys in the T-34 community. And I got to admit, when I first started talking to people on the T-34 forums, I was making mistakes left and right. And I don't really understand what it was about that, but I wanted to get to the point where I could speak semi-intelligently on T-34s. And it takes a long time. And you got to be willing to say, yep, that's wrong. I mean, it benefits everybody when you own up to being wrong. And I kind of, I don't really have a hard spot with existing in that kind of, you're going to have to make a lot of mistakes before you start to get things right.
That's a great point, Stephen, and I think that one of the things that I've always admired about your approach is you do have the two lanes. You've got the research, sort of the information about the prototype, and with your group, which is, I mean, the group on T34 issues and questions, but then you've got the sort of the modeling track, and because most of us are scale modelers, those two are joined at the hip. But like you said, I mean, some people just want to open up a kit like the Tamiya T34 kits, even though they're quite old, continue to be very popular. They're easy to build, they're inexpensive. Some people just want to grab one of those and build them, and other people really want to make sure that STZ variant is perfect and the fenders are correct, the rear engine hatch is correct, the road wheels are correct, and so by sort of splitting it into those two lanes, you really provide a really tremendous value and help to people who are looking, regardless of their approach.
And if you get a kick out of building something to a photograph and then taking it and displaying it in public and having people tell you that never happened, and then you've got the photograph. If you get a kick out of that, T34s and Shermans are wonderful for that. Because, I mean, if you build a factory perfect STZ, Stalingrad Tractor Zavad, that is, and you try to find a photograph of that as it rolled out of the factory, it's not all that easy to find. Finding a picture of a really, wrecked and rebuilt tank with a lot of character, that's real fun for me. But like you said, I mean, somebody buying the old Tamiya kit, building it, painting it in an inaccurate way, and enjoying it takes nothing away from me. That's great. And if they build that one and they enjoyed it, sooner or later they'll start asking, is this the right hatch? Should I, is this the right green? That's for down the road if they choose to go that way. But oddly, I T34s and to a much lesser degree, U.S. Army M151 mutts are the only vehicles I'm really engaged that way. Other than that, I'm kind of a what if modeler, and
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, modeling is modeling. I've really enjoyed seeing you do more science fiction modeling, recently.
With the advent of podcasts, YouTube, and Lincoln Wright kind of showing Machining Krieger, and also Brian Machining Krieger, who's a frequent flyer on your podcast and mentioned, and you guys hang out with him and everything. It shows. Those Lincoln Wright and Brian Kruger really did a lot to draw attention to Machining Krieger in the United States, in the Western world. And I kind of saw them. I built a Croat, and then I just started to really enjoy it. You can make any, sometimes you build a model because you want to do some weld beads. Sometimes you build a model because you want to do some photo etch. And Machining Krieger is just, you're halfway through the model and you go, you know what? I wish I had an opportunity to scribe some panel lines. You got the opportunity. There's the Machining Krieger universe. The lore behind it is that it's Earth in the year 2800. Anybody got a really good idea of what the Earth is going to look like in 2800? Anybody that tells you they do is a clown. You look up. I do this once in a while. I Google state of the art military equipment in the year 1400. So we're in the 21st century. The 14th century would be 700 years ago. 2800 would be 700 years from now. That's total freedom. I mean, if I went on one of those sailing vessels from 1400 that was like the state of the art military technology and said, let me tell you about a Tesla and my cell phone, I'd probably be, I'd walk the plank, So when, Machining Krieger's fun for that. When I built the Croat, I took off what the power plant on that, because I said, it looks too much like a motorcycle engine to me. And on one of the groups, one of the guys said, that's particle accelerator. You don't know what you're looking at, And I love that. I love that about Machining Krieger. It's fun.
Yeah, Steven, it's a particle accelerator. Jeez, man.
You have
you,
not, have you not read
we've
all the books?
we've talked about Renaissance a lot, and one of the things I wanted to just give a brief mention to, and I know that you've had a lot of back and forth with Jan, but RTM models and what they're bringing to the table for, particularly Soviet armors, whether it's, production vehicles or prototypes or paper panzers,
Yep.
with their A20, their KV4, the MT25. I mean, I know you've got a number of their pieces, and you've got another company, Demon Barber, who's
Yeah.
just doing some incredible 3D printing, T-34 side vents, guns, specific details. I mean, how does that affect a guy like yourself who really can kind of get off into the weeds on some of these details and really super detail a
Well,
T-34 and SU-85?
what I like about those companies, they're doing great stuff. They're doing great work. The print lines on their products are minimal or non-existent, easily resolved with a glass fiber pen. But the side vents, the air intakes on the engine deck of a T-34, and the larger exhaust, those have always been kind of tricky things to deal with. And early on, when I started doing Dragon T-34s, I took a set of the intakes, which the part that Dragon gives you has got the surface detail, but the part itself is probably 60 thousandths thick, and it's supposed to be basically maybe a quarter-inch round bar in reality. So I took those, and I would take a Dremel tool, cut the back off, and just sit there and sand them until they were thin. And that took a lot of time, and you ruined a lot of sets until you got one. And then I resin cast them for myself. And Demon Barber, one of the first products they came out with, was a set of screens, and he's got the screens 3D printed, and he's got them for the Zvezda kit, the Dragon kits, the RFM kits. That's like don't quote me on this, but the first time I bought them, they were like $8. That is such an upgrade and such a time saver for those Dragon kits. It's really terrific. That's Christoph from Demon Barber Design. Jan Orsel from Resin Tech Models. He's doing all these paper. He's doing actual STZ turrets, but he's also doing a lot of the theoretical, or not theoretical. They were designs that were never proceeded beyond the prototype stage, like a T-34 turret with an auto loader. I've got one of those. Those two companies, when they produce something, it's hard for me not to get it. Demon Barber Designs is doing a BT2 right now, which is a conversion for the Hobby Boss kit, and Jan is working on an A20, and he's also got a number of KV prototype designs as well, which I bought. I bought the first one, and just some really nice products. Have you got any of those, Scott?
I had an MT25, and that was really, really nice. The A20 is something I'm interested in. I don't think a very good kit of any kind has ever been
No.
available. And then one thing I wanted to touch on is he's all but said, he's sort of like, here's the turret, here's the wheels, but he's all but said that he's got an STZ variant coming. And, the only option we've had is that Dragon kit, which has many, many flaws and is really, really tough to deal with. So if indeed the STZ does come out, sign me up. But yeah, the A20 is something that I'm excited about.
Yeah.
I will tell you that I don't even know if they would like to have this publicized, but Christoph and Jan are very, very fast workers. I have had conversations with Jan about what some difference that I would like in a kit. The MT25 doesn't have crew hatches for the hull operators. It only had a hatch on the turret, which is, it would not have been popular with crews if they'd have built it. But I said, I'd like to do a stretched hull M25 with room to put the driver's hatch and the hull machine gunner's hatch on the hull. And I said, could you sell me a couple of flawed hulls and I'll just cut them and glue them together? And he said, why don't you give me a few minutes? And like 15 minutes later, he sent me a 3D design of a stretched hull and he said, I'll print you one of these. He just did it.
Jeez, you
All right.
said fast, but
I mean,
jeez.
15 minutes. And then Christoph, I found a T-34 with a really unique set of tracks. And a couple weeks later in the mail, I get a 3D printed set of tracks. And on the box, the label, he's made a label and it says the Steve Reid Special. Okay. These guys, they know that I have the T-34 groups and that I'm going to talk about it. But customer service wise, these guys are phenomenal. I mean, if you have a real specific interest and you find a 3D designer and 3D printer who shares that interest, you really need to support them.
Yeah.
If they can do things for you. I mean, the world has let me down in one thing. I really want an EM50 urban assault vehicle from Strikes, and nobody seems to come through for me on that. Every time I post that on a wish list, people laugh, and I think they think I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. I think that would be the coolest little 148 scale model next to your Tiger tanks and all that. But Demon Barber and Resin Tech models, there are plenty of 3D print suppliers and 3D printers that will disappoint the buyer. Those two right there, those guys, anything you buy from them is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, I had the Demon Barber early BT5 conversion for the BT2 from Hobby Boss.
Yes, that's the one.
That's an immaculate build. That is an immaculate resin or 3D print. It is beautiful.
I'm glad you corrected me, Grant. It is the BT5. Yeah.
Yeah. The early BT5. Yeah. It's beautiful.
But both of those gentlemen are just the real gentlemen, a joy to deal with if you want something kind of unique and different. I mean, it has to make sense for them financially. They're not, but I can tell you the MT25 came about from a discussion with Jan, and I wanted to teach. There's a young guy in my model club, and I wanted to give him like a tutorial in scratch building. And I looked at that MT25 and I said, I think if I had tracks and wheels for this and a couple of Trumpeter KV1 kits, we could hack that kit up and turn it into an MT25. So I reached out to Jan to 3D design and print me the wheels and tire and tracks. And about 2 weeks later, he sent me the drawings of the entire kit and said, what do you think of this? I was like, damn. Like 2 weeks, he went from, a request for a set of road wheels and tracks to this is going to be a product one. So,
man,
very fast workers, those guys.
100%. And for listeners out there, it's Demon Barber Designs and Christoph, and Resin Tech Models RTM. Jan is the owner of that. And so if you're interested in 135th scale armor and accessories, make sure you give those guys a look. As Steven said, they're excellent. So Steven, maybe what's next for you? What are you working on right now, and what's coming down the pipe?
I got to thank you for jogging my memory about that, Scott, because, like I said, those are good guys. What's coming down the pipe for me? I just posted it on the group this morning. I got a Machining Krieger Goblin that I'm working on. And I'm feeling my way along with that. I don't have a kind of an endpoint in mind, which is kind of an unusual way to build a model. But it's coming out good and I'm happy with it. I'm also working on a Rubicon Models M151 that is taking way longer than it should. But the painting is very detailed. And after that, I don't know what I'm going to do. I want to keep chipping away at my shelf queens. I've got a couple of T-34s that are, deserve to be finished. After you remember the episode after AMPS 2025 when TJ said it's just a bunch of old guys giving each other medals. You decided, yeah. So studio scale modelers, don't fret. Your turn in the barrel was coming if you wanted to be a legitimate modeling pursuit. But anyway, I bought some Warhammer 40K figures, put them together, and I'm painting those. Just want any kind of opportunity to develop my painting because if I were to tell you, am I a good builder or painter, I'm definitely favor the building more. But I'm looking around. I got plenty of half-finished stuff, I'll tell you that.
You mean you have a shelf of doom?
Give me some ideas. I have I don't know how big, what's the biggest shelf you can name? I have Last time I made a list, I have 30 models in progress in this room
Wow.
that are, so, I have a problem.
I think you're a modeler, is what
Yeah.
that means.
No, it's real lack of maturity, Scott, because a modeler would have said, I've got a model in here that I started in 2010. A mature person would say, I'm gonna let this thing go, but I'm not that mature.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. So, if somebody is working on a T-34 and they have some questions,
Yeah.
how do they get to your groups? How do they get a hold of you? What do those groups look like?
If you get on Facebook and you search for the T-34 interest group and the T-34 scale modeling group, then you can ask to join. They're private groups because we were trying to cut down on the spam that was real bad a few years ago. And you will be asked questions. And you need to answer those questions because I get a lot of requests to join every day. And I'll be blunt about this. In those forums, we're more rigid with the rules than most because we have 8,000 members in the interest group last time I checked, and like 3,500 in the modeling group. And I feel that when somebody posts something ridiculous, like which was better, the Tiger 1 or the T-34, hundreds of people will read that, and it's an abuse. It's an abuse of people's time, and when I see it, it disappears. And so, because that is the way I run those groups, I'll be completely candid about it. I'm looking for rule followers. So if I post it, I request that you read the rules before you join. I'm not kidding. And if you're going to post pictures, immediately join and start posting pictures of KV1s, and you don't understand that we're trying to maintain the focus on T-34s, then you may not notice it, but you're going to be shown the door.
Gonna get nuked from orbit, right?
And now look, does that sound like I'm a horrible person? Maybe, but I put myself and the other moderators. We're donating our time, and I've been doing it for like 10 years. So I want people to get good things out of it, and sort of unapologetic about that. Well, I say that while I'm apologizing. Yeah, T-34 interest group and T-34 scale modeling group. And if you have an interest in either one of those things, you're more than welcome.
Are we going to see you at AMPS in Camp Hill next year?
Yeah, TJ, I try to go to every AMPS. I really like AMPS. When I walk into AMPS and I'm checking into the hotel, usually before I've even checked in, I see 3 or 4 people. I've been going for a long time. I love it. I feel more alive in some ways at AMPS shows than any other part of my life. It's just, I've got a lot of friends there. I really enjoy it. And I love the models and I love everything about it. However, I've got one of those jobs where February timeframe, February, March is where we refuel one of the reactors, and that's an all hands on deck thing. I cannot walk away from that even for a weekend. It's a 24-hour day, 7 days a week until it's done. And then the other thing is that I'm the training manager for maintenance and tech at the nuclear plant where I work. And we had accreditation activities coming up this year. So if we lose accreditation for our training programs, then everybody who's qualified, their qualifications are basically null and void. So I can't have 280 people get disqualified because I wasn't there when I was needed. So that's what happened this year with missing AMPS. Bummer. But when it's in Camp Hill, it's a lot easier for me to get there than when it's in the Midwest. And I did talk to Scott. I mean, Scott and I wanted to go and couldn't go this year. We had a discussion. We said, look, it's when attending a model show starts to get into the $1,500 neighborhood, you really got to think about whether or not you can go. So, yeah, but Camp Hill is a great time. it was great. I've got a picture of you and Jeff Feller and I there. And I never shared that photograph with anyone because you guys look normal, and I had this goofy ass smile on my face. I looked like a cartoon character, almost embarrassing. So I mean, I was so happy to see you guys. And Jeff, Jeff is another one of those. There's a lot of them, man. You know what I'm saying, TJ? Like I was saying about Adam Wilder, just really, really talented people with no ego and a lot of generosity. And Jeff is one of those. He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah, Jeff's one of the good ones for sure.
And when I walk around at AMPS, maybe I've got rose-colored glasses on, but that's knowing those people. I mean, that's pretty much all I see when I walk through there. It's great. How about you, TJ? You going to be there?
Oh, of course. Camp Hill's in 2 hours from my house.
I think it's about 10 hours for me. So the last time I went, I had to fly. If I can't, I say that, when you're going to a model show, if you travel by yourself, the model show starts when you get there. If you pick up a couple buddies and carpool, the model show starts when you pick up your first friend, because you're just going to talk about modeling. It's great. I prefer to carpool to one, even if it's a long drive.
Yeah, I wish it was in Camp Hill every year. It'd be nice. So close to my house.
Something's going to change for me. I don't know if you guys wouldn't know this, but years ago in 2015, I worked at the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And for financial and political pressures, that plant ceased to function, ceased to generate electricity. So I had to relocate for my profession, and I ended up down here in Georgia. And it's fine down here, but my 3 children were either starting college or starting their careers. And when I told them I'm moving south, they said, "Well, good luck with that, Dad." And they're all living in Massachusetts now. So when I retire, if I want to be near my grandchildren, I've got to move back to Massachusetts. So, I'm going to be up there in the area where ArmorCon goes on again. And hopefully Camp Hill continues to be a venue for AMPS. And I'll be able to do all of that stuff when I retire very, very easily. I think from Massachusetts area where my kids live to drive to Camp Hill is probably 4 hours or something. Not bad at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to it, man. I love it. Every time I hear people talking about the Nationals and they go, "Are you going to the Nationals?" I'm like, the Nationals were in Camp Hill a few months ago, and Ben, and they go, "No, the IPMS Nationals." No, the real Nationals has got to do with tanks.
That's right. Speaking of
how about you, Grant? We think we can get Grant to come out to one of them?
I don't know. That's a big push for me. My big push every year is SMC, so we'll see.
Yeah,
I might
be pretty good.
Yeah, that's hits it pretty decently. I might try Wonderfest next year, but that's about as close as I'm going to get. So
that's definitely more in your
Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky. So, but I've got to do Rocky Mountain, of course, and a couple other small shows around here. But yeah, one of these days I'll get back out to AMPS.
Well, I guess I'll see you at Rocky Mountain then, because I gotta figure out a way to come to that one.
There you go. Get you and some of the East Coast guys, out here. That'd be awesome, man. Frank and some of those guys, man. We need to get you out here. Yeah, heck yeah.
I'll tell you what, the PR on that is obviously very favorable. You guys are doing great things out there. I'm excited to check that out sometime.
Well, thank you. We have a pretty good time. I think for only 3 years, I think it's really growing into something special, and we'll have a date for next year here any day now. So it's really, really great. But hey, speaking of Massachusetts, TJ, you promised some travel log of patriotic sites that you recently visited. So come on, man, you're holding out on us.
Yeah. I mean, look, I was only up there for a couple of days. But yeah, that was my absence last episode. I went up and we drove up to central Massachusetts. I've never been to Massachusetts. So this was the first time for me. I was pretty excited because I know it's a beautiful state. I've never really been to New England. I've been to kind of upstate New York once for a wedding, and I was there for like a day, and then we, you know, left the next day. So, yeah, it was really cool.
Did you
While
go?
you know,
Did you eat in the north end of Boston?
no, so we didn't go to Boston because I just didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
So we went to Concord or Concord. I think they say Concord if I'm
Yep.
not mistaken. So we did that because I was like, I got to go to see Old North Bridge and got to walk through Minuteman Park. Like if I'm here, if I'm close, I have to do that. And we were about probably about an hour away from uh, Concord and Lexington. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet up with our buddy Doc Anderson. He was working. Um, he's a doctor, so he does not have the best working hours. And I was disappointed. I was hoping that we could at least get together, grab a drink or a coffee or something, but it didn't really work out. So yeah, it was. You know, look, this is not like a JB trip. I didn't do 8 million things and all this other stuff. I went up there for me and my wife to have a nice quiet weekend away. My kids were in Florida with their uncle, so we were like, "Hey, we got a whole week to ourselves. Let's." I couldn't take a week off of work because all the other things I have to take off work for. And my wife's a school teacher, so she's off in the summer anyway. So like, hey, we need to go someplace nice. So we went up there, and since we were up there, I'm like, I gotta go see this stuff. And then we spent the next day. We spent all day in Salem. My wife's really into like the whole witch thing,
Mhm.
which was pretty cool. Salem was very neat. It's a historic town, and we were all down through downtown Salem. And I really wanted to go to Boston because all the tall ships were in
Yep.
Boston Harbor for the 250th, but it just didn't work out. I couldn't. We I wanted to spend more time in Salem for her because we did the whole Concord thing for me. Not that my wife doesn't care about history; it's American history. It's hard not to like it, but you know she would rather go see witch stuff than a bridge. Right,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's really all. I don't have a whole lot to talk about as far as my trip goes, other than
No,
hey,
it sounds cool, man.
Massachusetts is beautiful. I would retire there if I could. I know it's a very expensive state to live in, but
Very expensive. You don't retire there unless you have to.
yeah, it was absolutely wonderful. The weather was gorgeous. It was a little warm, but not like it had been in Virginia. So
Well, if you get up there again, TJ, I kept in touch with all my old friends up there. There's a very active amps club called Minuteman Amps, and they meet at the Collins Foundation Museum, which you probably ought to check out anyway. You know about the Collins Foundation Museum?
I do not.
They got, man, the guy's name escapes me. Who was the wealthy industrialist who, Littlefield?
Yeah, Jacques
Mm,
Littlefield, MVTF. Most of that collection is in that museum now in
Yeah.
the Collings Foundation.
So the Collins Foundation Museum there has got just terrific artifacts, and they allow the Amps Club to meet there um, for free monthly. And a lot of those guys are my old buddies. And Russ Clark is in that club. Chris LeBlanc is in that club. Frank Froment was, but just recently relocated to Ohio, I believe. But you would know people there, TJ, if you get up there again. Any of you guys?
yeah, I know Russ lives up there. He reached out to me. Um, I didn't get an opportunity to meet up with him either. I drove past where he lives,
Yeah.
um, but it just didn't work out. So yeah, we're probably gonna go back and spend a little more time.
Well,
Um,
try to get up just for you and your wife. Try to get up to the north end and have dinner up there. The food is phenomenal. It's really you can't go wrong up there.
Yeah, one of the best things I've ever done is go to Boston, go down to the harbor and check that out, and then yeah, go on board the USS Constitution. Just fantastic. Just it's really maintained by the Navy to an unbelievable level. But yeah, standing on the deck of the Constitution is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's on my list. So we're definitely going back and we're gonna hit up Austin.
And don't, if you go up there and you have dinner and you don't eat seafood, don't ever tell me about it. I don't want to hear about that. You gotta get seafood. When you're that close to the ocean, the seafood in Boston is there's a restaurant called Legal Seafood. They're very good, but you just can't go wrong up there. There's great food, great desserts. I mean, really good.
Yeah,
One,
I'm a seafood guy, so
yeah, one of the other members of that club. I mentioned this to you guys earlier. One of the other members of that club is an old friend of mine. His name is Joe Farina, and Joe recently acquired the Verlinden line and the Warriors product lines, all of them. So he's planning on bringing some of that stuff back. That'll be really very cool for those of us who have memories of, craving some of that Verlinden stuff and not being able to afford it because of our age and everything. And he's going to bring some of the items back. So that's going to be pretty cool. But the modeling community up there in New England is super active. When I lived in Plymouth, there were probably three IPMS clubs within a reasonable drive. Even there were the ArmorCon show is very good. Back when I was up there, the difference between the Amps Nationals and ArmorCon wasn't significant enough that it would bother you. I mean, obviously the Amps Nationals was bigger, but there are some great shows up there, some really active modelers that do great work. I mean, Russ Clark, Joe, Raul Urbina's up there, Frank Froment was up there. Ken Abrams doesn't go to a lot of events, but if you guys know Ken Abrams, you know of him.
Just
yeah,
online, he's a heck of a modeler, man.
He's amazing. I went to an ArmorCon show with him, and his stuff was jaw dropping. And it was one of the first events he'd ever been to, and he said he like took me on one side and he goes, "Could you critique this stuff for me?" And I go, "Yeah, it's way better than anything I've ever done." It was like he was so he was. I don't even think I think I've mentioned this to him before, and it's like he doesn't remember it, but he was so modest and so talented. Those are the memories in this hobby that kind of warm your heart. That guy is a freaking world-class modeler. And he comes over to me and goes, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I'm like, what, are you kidding me? Pinch me, man. Are you punking me right now?
Nah, there's a lot of great people like that in this hobby, man, that are really humble.
Yeah, I was in a model club that had Ken Abrams, Rob Pereira, and Ian Hamilton from AK Interactive. Just, a club of like 12 people, and 3 of them are in it. And they were just come over, hang out in my basement, work on models. It was amazing. Those were good times. But that's I live in Georgia now, where there's like I drive 35 minutes to a grocery store. I'm really rural, and Massachusetts, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting 3 model clubs.
That's awesome.
Whole different world, man. Anyway, you know what? I forgot to plug my club that I'm down here in the suburbs of Savannah and near the Fort Stewart, where the 3rd Infantry Division is, and my model club is the Southeast Georgia IPMS Amps Club, and we meet at the 3rd Infantry Division Museum on Fort Stewart the first Saturday of every month. And as what we found is that a lot of our members are people who have retired from other parts of America, and they retire in Savannah. And we've got some really good modelers. More showing up all the time. Frank Blanton recently told me he's having a house built in this area, and he's going to be joining us. So that's very cool.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. You ever been up to, like, how far are you from TJ?
Virginia, TJ, the TJ Howler on this broadcast.
TJ Howler on this one, yeah.
Northern Virginia, that's probably about 9 hours.
yeah.
That's a pretty good stretch of the legs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably won't.
America's big, Scott.
Yeah. Yeah.
I drive up to my children are 1,000 miles from me door to door, and it takes 21 hours to drive.
Oof.
And I'm 60, so it's, that isn't getting any easier.
Yeah, we're certainly not afraid of long drives out here in the West. But
Oh, I
yeah,
bet.
that's a pretty good go. So anyway. All right. Well, let's move on. Grant, you want to talk about the Star Wars group build?
Yeah, as you know, we are doing a Star Wars group build, hashtag Posse, was it Posse SB or SWB? And we have a lot of stuff going on right now. It's on till I believe, October 1st. There's been some really good stuff online. Of course, there's Michael Libro's Alliance Droid that he's just finished, which is amazing. That is just a great build. Good job, Michael. Martin Holst is working on a Star Wars Legion diorama, which is really cool. That's great. I'm glad to see that. We got a TIE Avenger, which is also done by Jason Gill. That's a really cool model. I love it. I love the TIE Avenger. That's one of my favorites of the TIE series. We got a couple X-Wings, one by Robbie Knopf, who's doing a 3D printed one. He's blaming TJ for that. And also we have Russell Wells has been doing a fantastic job on his, another great build. And then we've got a Bandai Mandalorian with Grogu from Ben Hardaway that was been recently posted. So all great builds. Really glad to see them. If you want to get on it, just check the page out, put the hashtag in, and it's anything Star Wars, any scale, any whatever you want. Just put it in there. It's just for fun. Enjoy. We're still talking about some prizes. Maybe a book or two. I've got a couple books that I have copies of that are pretty rare that people might like. So yeah, we'll think about that, and just keep on posting your pictures on the website, guys, and I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, just a quick note. Adam Griffin from New Zealand asked us to let everybody know about their upcoming IPMS New Zealand Nationals Model Expo. That runs from October 30th through November 1st at the Hornby Working Men's Club in Christchurch in New Zealand. Online registration is now live. They use a hybrid of gold, silver, bronze, and 1, 2, 3 as their judging system. They also have a Nationals dinner planned for the night of the 31st. You can see details of these of the judging and the dinner and all those other things on their Facebook page, which is 2026 New Zealand IPMS National Competition and Model Expo, or you can go to their website, which is ipmsschch.co.nz. So yeah, go check that out. If you're in New Zealand, go check out their website and their Facebook page. And then Jensen's not here to wow us with his salesmanship, but just a reminder, you can do merch at loungetrousers.com, and also remind you that we do have a website. It's plastic-posse.com. We haven't made a lot of changes to it recently, but there's a lot of really great, useful tools there. Our episodes are all there. There's scale calculators, 3D printing resources, a lot of really great stuff there, and plastic-posse.com. And with that, I think, TJ, I think we're pretty good. Let you close this thing out.
Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate all you listeners as always. For me, it was good to be back. I've been out for a little while. So yeah, see you next time.
One of the ways that you can help to support the Plastic Posse is to become a Plastic Posse Outrider. If you want to become one, it's super easy. And yes, you can even do it wearing lounge trousers. Go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Plastic Posse Podcast and set up a recurring donation there. These contributions help offset the cost of bringing you the posse and also other things like merch and swag and other things that support the hobby and shows. There are 3 different tiers of support, and they start at just $1 a month. There are some great benefits to becoming an Outrider. You'll get early access to our podcasts, you get premium access to the host, a chance to appear on a podcast like the famous Mr. Stephen Reid, and exclusive Triple P content and social events at model shows.
Let's recognize our amazing deputy marshals. These loyal contributors support what the posse does, and we genuinely appreciate each and every one of you. And they are, in no particular order, Pellings, Greg Friddle, Ben Hardaway, Kevin Johnson, Chaz Teets, Matt Parvis, Jacob Ford, Robert Klein, Todd Reach, Brett Avance, Brett Johnson, Angel Garcia, Carl Doran, Pat Brown, Ryan Smith, Alamo Squadron, Model Fiesta, Curtis Towers, Winston Gould, The Quiet Corner Modeler, Daryl Miller, Rob Booth, David Clark, Robbie Knopfs, Wesley Becker, David Wassel, Matt Tutman, Zach Pease, Brett Mercan, Greg Williams, Sick Wolf, Sean Earl, Black Hat Scale Models, Red Beach One Studios, James Brondo, Mike Norris, Stephen Rodwell, Rick Cooper, Eric Kavina, John Hale, Eric Kane, Logan Hansen, Tim Gidcombe, Dan Newman, Robert Blocker, Tyler Moore, Derek Post, Craig Flynn, Kenneth Childress, Drew Gardner, Scott Hall, Frank Perone, Jeremy Diamond, Terry Wilkinson, Chris Lovewell, Andrew Callis, Ethan Idemill, Steve Baker, Jay Kidd, Brandon Gentry, Lee Fogle, Mark Ewing, Toadman, Model Doc, Greg James, Les Mercalla, John Everett, Uncle Buck, Mark Bradley, Eric Brubaker, Jeremy Moore, DB Scale Model Studio, Jeremy Elliott, Mike Talley, Previous Seat, Mediocre Middle-Aged Modeler, and JC Osborne.
Let's not forget the posse foreman. This crew is made up of posse outriders who give the deputy marshals a hand. We also like to thank them for their support. Company Workshop, Andy, the voice of Bob, Graham, Keith, Dwayne, AK Armor, Bill, Casey, Therese, Russ, Stefan, Mikkel, LeVar, Gil, Mike, Michael, Scott, Emery, the Krieger, Ozzy Modeler, Jeff, Eddie, Ross, Warhoff Models, G. Baker, Tom Stuff, Crazy Loca, Len, Cliff, Damon, Cody, Nukeman Mike, Paul, iBones Models, Mr. Grizz, Jackson, Joel, Chris, Jamie, MD Models, Papa Steve Munsell, JV, Eric, Matthew, and David. And of course, our $1 and free posse outriders. Thanks, guys.